Our housing problem in Aotearoa is multifaceted. I'm going to talk about one aspect of that affects housing affordability, and I think we can do a lot about that. So we hear about the price of land and how it's so unaffordable, and then of course any housing that we put on top of that is just going to be even more unaffordable. So we've really got to tackle this housing value, the price of land. The land value that we're dealing with, and the paradigm and the worldview that is affecting that value. So what I see is manufactured scarcity based on land banking. So at the moment we have a situation where someone can buy a piece of land, it can just sit there doing nothing, and in fact it's even devaluing, because in a community where there's a blank space, nothing's happening, it's actually taking away from the vibrancy, the wealth of that community in terms of local economic development and social systems. So we need to look at that. A vacant piece of land is actually devaluing the community, and therefore the price of that land should actually be devalued. And that manufactured scarcity is sitting on that land waiting for all the other activities around that piece of land, other economic development to happen, which is actually the thing that is creating that land price increase, not actually anything happening on that land. And that's quite perverse. It's actually the reverse of what we would normally say is adding value into the community. So how do we do this? Well, we need to look at other cultural paradigms to understand that what we're understanding as normal is actually not. So I come from South Africa, in an area where the tribal authority was the one who granted permission to occupy pieces of land. So if one wanted to have a piece of land for a house, for grazing, or for growing food, the process was to go visit the chief. The chief would call in the local community who was in that area. Everybody would come together. The person buying would say, this is what I want to use the land for. This is how I'm going to bring value into the community. Everybody would have a couple hours together to get to know each other. And the chief would basically agree to that. And then there'd be one more meeting of the community just to finalize that, and where the permission to occupy was given. Now, if that person who bought that land doesn't do anything on that land for a period of time, could be about up to a year, where it would just sit vacant. If no other reason, really good reason, was given for that land not being utilized, the chief would actually reabsorb it back into the community and offer it to somebody else who could do something with it, who would add value to that piece of land. And therefore, it kept the community quite vibrant and being able to operate effectively. So that is a worldview that to me makes sense. You use it or lose it. We even have that phrase, but yet for some reason it doesn't apply to land. So we need to really look at, why do we have housing unaffordability? And if it's the land, then that is really where we've got to tackle. We've got to look at our paradigm, our worldview, and really understand it from that point of view, that it is not normal for something that has nothing done to it to rise in value. Almost nothing else on the planet works in that way. And in fact, usually it's the opposite. When something is degenerative or degenerating, it loses its value. And so that's what's going on with the price of our land. And that's a good way for us to assist with housing affordability, is to generate value from that land. And perhaps we need to be looking at inclusionary zoning, where if somebody does want to build on a piece of land, that we're able to utilize a part of that land to be able to give it to affordable housing. So if a land is going to be rezoned, a portion of that land in that zoning process is allocated to a community housing provider or something similar. And therefore, the land has great value because it's given back to the community. So thank you for listening for this episode of what we can do to assist with our housing crisis and turn it into opportunity. Kia ora.